teaching internship way up in the northwest part of the state up near Canada. So she's going to talk to you a little bit about that. She has 30 minutes to deliver that presentation. There will be 10 minutes for questions at the end that we will go between both our online audience and those of us face-to-face. We will utilize Jess there at the front to help us read those questions aloud. So if you're online, please feel free to ask questions in the chat. Thank you, Joelle.
All right, thank you, Dr. Curry. So my name is Nicolette Cusate, and I am a member of PSU AGID 2023 and a student teaching candidate for the spring. And before I get into answering those three questions that Dr. Curry mentioned, I want to talk about how I ended up here at Penn State University pursuing a degree in agricultural and extension education. So when I was growing up, I was a kid that just loved to be outside, turn over rocks, look at bugs. My parents got me a lot of books when I was younger to identify those bugs. So it was no surprise that when I decided to go to high school, I left my home high school and I went to a career and tech center in Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania called Columbia Montour AUTS. And the first person that actually told me about FFA and what agricultural education was my mother. She was also a FFA member of the same FFA chapter years before me. And from there, I just had a really great time moving up the ranks of our FFA chapter. I held some various leadership positions, including president and president my senior year. And then when the time came to think about college, it was kind of an obvious choice for me. I loved FFA and I loved my time in the ag education department. And I had a great ag teacher. And that middle picture there is her and I the day that I told her that I was going to Penn State to follow in her footsteps to become an ag teacher as well. From there, I did my first 2 years at Penn State Barron up in Erie, where I was right alongside my sister the whole time. And then from there, between being an FFA and pursuing my degree, I found my lane, so to speak, in agricultural pageantry, and that's been a huge part of my life as a fair queen and representing individual counties within Pennsylvania. So like Dr. Curry mentioned, we have some goals for today. Those questions are around the room. They are who I aspire to be as a teacher, what experiential education opportunities I've engaged in to become a better teacher, and how am I prepared to rock out that student teaching internship in the spring at Northwestern High School. So first I want to talk about who I aspire to be as a teacher. And even though I have had some great role models to look up to in agriculture education, I feel like I have really found who I want to be as an educator here at Penn State. So to start off with my teaching philosophy, it boils down to three basic things. I want my students to be informed, professional, and productive. And I do this through incorporating that three-circle model for agriculture education. So the informed piece comes from that classroom instruction, the professional piece comes from FFA integration, and the productive piece comes from SAE integration. And if you want to read more about my rationale on this, it's in that QR code that's on the handout and it was on that first slide. So my classroom management strategies are here up on the board. I have some expectations, procedures, and consequences. And my expectations are to bring your best to class each day. So I want my students to be respectful, engage in the lesson, support each other, and try new things. When I was micro teaching at Greenwood High School this semester, Michael Clark had a poster in his room that said, "I challenge you to bring your best self to class every day." And I was really inspired by that, and I wanted to model my expectations off of that poster. The classroom procedures are pretty basic. Find your seat, put your phone away, begin bell work, ask if you need to leave the room, and then turn in your work at the end of the day so I can see how productive you were that day. And then the classroom consequences vary by the severity of defense that the student has the behavior. But it's a verbal warning, a call home, or referral, and then that parent guardian meeting. And like I said, they vary. So we could go right to a call home if that's the necessary action. But in addition to these three posters, I want to highlight that little diagram on my slide there, that the policies and procedures piece is only one facet of classroom management, I believe. That a lot of it boils down to the way the classroom is laid out, the materials, my ability as the teacher, and my instruction. And then that last one that's at the bottom is time. Am I dedicating the time to reinforce these expectations, make them clear, and be consistent between my classes? I feel like that is the key to classroom management. This is a little bit about my ideal program curriculum. When I was at my CTC, I was under an applied horticulture SIP code, so plant science is kind of my lane. But my ideal program curriculum would be under the landscaping and groundskeeping SIP code, where we do plant science, landscaping, ag mechanics in the landscaping context, and then landscaping in the community. And then the overall goal of this program would be to prepare students to either be landscapers in the community for a landscaping company or to be greenhouse producers. So I had the pleasure of working with Nathan Moyer, last year's cohort member, to create this $15 project. It is a oven push-pull stick. So the idea is that you can pull an oven rack out with this little notch right here, and you can test the temperature of what you're cooking, and then use this little notch to push the oven rack back in. And this is an awesome project for high school students to engage in and do, because you use a variety of tools in the shop to create this, like the drill press for the hole, the sander, the joiner, the planer. And I feel like it's just all-encompassing and really gets students familiar with those tools they're going to be using for other projects in the shop. Relatively inexpensive. It costs about $1.75 to make this project. So now I want to talk a little bit about SAE integration. I want it to be part of career exploration, and I feel like there's a huge component in high schools that is missed on career exploration. I feel like we kind of talk to students about it when they come in as freshmen, and then we never really touch on it again. We never do that deep dive. But I feel like career exploration is something that we should be revisiting every year with our students, because I know that what I wanted to do as a freshman in high school was way different by my senior year. So are we doing that career exploration and doing our kids that service to help them find their place in the world after they leave our program? And then how can we find ways to connect what they're interested in and what their career goals are to a supervised agricultural experience? In addition to those two middle points, I want to highlight that last one, the integrated SAE plan as part of class grade. I want to set my students up to get their green hand degree at the end of their freshman year, set them up to get their chapter degree during their sophomore or junior year, and then put them in the best position possible to earn their Keystone degree their senior year, if that's what they so choose, and really pace it out for my students so that they don't have that realization at the end of their senior year, like, oh, I want my Keystone degree, and that's too late. So I want to give them that opportunity and guide them through that. For FFA integration, I feel like the easiest way to integrate this into classroom instruction is through an agricultural leadership class and also through agricultural history. I feel like there's a huge part of FFA that contributes to why my students are in my class, and that spot in history is important for my students to understand and know. And then the classic FFA meetings and events such as conferences like ACES and SLLC, and then competing in those career and leadership development events throughout the year. So I was going to play this video for my program recruitment, but I chose not to. But basically, my program recruitment strategy is to use my students to recruit other students. And once I have an established program full of diverse students from all different backgrounds, I feel like that would just contribute to the overall success and recruitment efforts for my program, and it would kind of be like a machine that like fuels itself. So community integration and involvement is a really big value of mine as an educator. And I really, really, really am excited to see how this rocks out in the spring, because I have 2 community-based units of instruction planned to do with my students. And some of the ways that I can integrate the community are through guest speakers, field trips, and community service projects. And that last one, that community service project piece, is I have a community service unit that is followed by a grant writing unit. So we're actually planning to apply for a mini service grant to fund our community service project. And I'm really excited to see how that goes in the spring. So at this point, I'm going to move into question 2 about the experiential education opportunities I've had to become the best educator I can be here at Penn State. I've taken a few key courses, and at this time I want to highlight 2 on this slide. One of them is Animal Science 201. This was a really important course for me because coming from an applied horticulture SIP code, I didn't really have any animal science background. And this course really exposed me to all of the different elements of animal science and how I can use that information during my student teaching. And then that middle one, that early childhood education 453, is actually a course I took at my branch campus, Penn State Erie. And this was about involving parents and guardians in the home and center. So one of the assignments I had for this class was a mock parent-teacher conference where we had to write letters home. We had to have different extension activities to send home to enrich instruction and really just get parents involved in what we were doing in the classroom. And my professor actually let me cater that to agriculture education. And the video's on YouTube if you guys want to see it. Some certifications I've received the past couple months are the National Safe Tractor and Machinery Operation Program Instructor Cert, the Use for the Quality Care of Animals Instructor, Serve Safe Food Handler, and the OSHA 10 General Industry for the agriculture field. And I'm excited to see how I can use those during my student teaching. This is my favorite slide on the whole presentation, because you know me, you know that I am a sucker for a good professional development. So I want to highlight two experiences on here that were really key for me. That Agri-Science Inquiry Institute. This was kind of like the PD that made me fall in love with PD. We were led by Master Teacher Krista Pontius from Greenwood High School, and I found a lot of interesting ways to include high impact inquiry instruction into my classes. And then the other one I want to highlight is the National Association for Agriculture Educators Convention that me and all of my cohort members were just at 2 weeks ago in Las Vegas. And this was really a great conference for me because I felt like I was being part of the Ag Ed family, not just at Penn State, but across the whole nation, and networking with teachers and hearing what they do in their programs, and then bringing some of those ideas back and all those resources we got from the workshops to share with my cohort. It's just really, really valuable. I have two key work experiences I want to highlight in my final presentation. This past summer, I was an AmeriCorps member stationed in Knox, Pennsylvania, where I worked with an at-risk population of 4th grade students. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later. And then I also worked for the Center for Professional Personnel Development right across the hallway here in Ferguson. And I created some professional development resources and instruction for teacher professional development opportunities for teachers across the state. So real quick, I want to talk about my global experiences. So it is a goal of mine to leave the country, but I unfortunately haven't had that opportunity yet. So the closest thing I have to a global experience is participating in the Global Orientation for Agricultural Learning program. This was a program that was funded by USDA NIFA, partnered with the World Food Prize and the University of Idaho, where we went on a year-long professional development journey. And in the fall, these two pictures here, we actually got to go to the World Food Prize in Des Moines, Iowa, and see Dr. Tilstead earn her award. And then we learned all about the Sustainable Development Goals and food security. And then we actually got to apply that knowledge over spring break last semester, where I had the tremendous honor of teaching at Eagleton College and Career Academy in Maryville, Tennessee. So I want to talk a little bit about how I'm prepared to work with a variety of diverse learners. And part of that piece is going back to that ECE 453 class. I didn't learn just about how to interact with parents, but also absent parents, parents in the military, parents in incarceration, and all of these different angles to view a student's home life just really developed my sense of empathy and ways that I can connect with my students in that way. AE 412, our methods course, we learned about the 8 multiple intelligences and how to reach those learners, and I feel like that is also a facet of diversity. And then my goals teaching immersion at Eagleton, there were students that didn't speak English, and I had to overcome that language barrier with them and still provide them the best instruction I could while I was there. And then my AmeriCorps experience, I worked with a totally different age group that I was comfortable with. Those students were 8 and 9 years old, and I was teaching something that I wasn't really familiar with teaching. And I feel like that just really contributed to greatly to my experience with diverse learners. So lastly, my last question is how I'm prepared to maximize my student teaching internship opportunity. And I am so honored and excited to say that I will be student teaching at Northwestern Senior High School under Mr. Anthony Honeycutt in Erie County. The program is co-advised by Ms. Julie Schmidt. That's a picture of her in the middle there. And a little bit about the program is that they have about 130 students enrolled in agriculture education between both of their classes. And they have a bunch of awesome facilities on site That picture right there is their maple sugaring facility that they call the Sugar Shack. They also have a forestry plot, a greenhouse, and a full shop. And one area that Northwestern really thrives in is their community involvement. So this last picture there, that's students carving pumpkins for their annual pumpkin walk that they hold in October. It's basically through a walk through the forestry plot where people can look at pumpkins that not only the ag program students have carved, but different art classes from the elementary schools carve pumpkins and bring them and drop them off. They decorate with pretty lights, and that sees over 1,000 people. So they have a lot of really good community support and engagement. This is just a quick overview of the courses that I'm going to be teaching during my student experience, my student teaching experience. And this pretty much coincides directly with like how I'll pick up my classes and drop them. I start teaching week 2 in the animal science class, and then I take that one all the way through. And I just have those other 4 classes, the agri-science applications, ag mech, ag leadership, small animal science, and landscaping. So some of my strengths as a student teacher candidate are that I'm a lifetime learner, I'm open-minded, perceptive, and empathetic. And one of the things I want to highlight on this slide is that empathy piece. So actually, this picture, that last picture there, is actually from the 4-H, the state 4-H conference last spring, or maybe it was fall, can't remember now, sorry. But I facilitated a workshop about managing stress with Mr. Jacob Turco that's here today. And we had the opportunity to have students write one of their biggest struggles and then put them on that anchor chart that I have there. And at the end of that workshop, there were multiple students that came up to Mr. Turco and I and confided in us about what they're going through, and saw us as kind of like a guiding force to seek advice. And that was really my first experience with students opening up to me and trusting me with something very personal to them. And that really was critical in developing empathy for my students and seeing where they're coming from. My goals for student teaching are pretty simple. I want to become a more confident educator. I want to learn more about animal science, find my teaching style, and be part of Northwestern's story. And I really want to highlight that find my teaching style piece, because I feel like there were times throughout the semester during my micro teaching and through my lab experiences and through my life knowledge lesson that I wasn't really sure what kind of educator I wanted to be. And I just want to find my lane and decide if I want to be a proper, put together, business-like professional educator, or do I want to like let loose and have fun and really just like see what my students are all about and show them my personality. And I'm excited to find out what side of that I end up being on. So my sister, hopefully she's watching online. We do call each other Hissy, admittedly. But since she couldn't be here today, I just included this slide. That's a quote from her that she sent me to encourage me for today. And then that's us growing up together throughout the years. We are 10 years apart, but she's my biggest supporter and my rock. So yeah, I just wanted to highlight her. So I just want to close my presentation by saying thank you to literally everyone that has gotten me here today. My cohort members, thank you all for being here. Cade, Jen, thank you for being here. And the faculty, staff, TAs, like I would be nothing without all of your support. And it just means so much to me. So thank you. At this time, I'll answer any questions anybody has.
Again, on the chat and Zoom world, if you could please put those in there, Jess will help relay those questions to the group. Nicolette, I'll get us started with the question, which sort of leads off of your last point there on who you're going to be as a teacher, your style. And my question is, what is the role and or importance of humor in the classroom?
I think that the role of humor in the classroom is to just be more relatable to your students. I think that the best teachers I've had, in my opinion, were funny and like enjoyed the same things that me and my classmates did and weren't afraid to let their hair down, so to speak, and like connect with us in that way. So I feel like humor is a way to connect with your students in the classroom.
Follow up on that, you said a proper business teacher or a teacher that has fun. Is it either or? Are these options that we have to choose which door we walk through?
When you frame it like that, no. I feel like you can be both. But I definitely know some teachers that are a lot more loose and fun, and teachers that are very bell-to-bell teaching and don't divert too much from the content. And I want to find out who I am. And I don't want to be like someone that just stands in front of the room and talks at my students all day. I want to have opportunities to engage with them and have fun. And if they want to show me a TikTok that relates to something that we're doing, like I want to be able to be like, yeah, like let's show that to the class, like that's fine. And show them a little bit of my personality. Anna?
Will you be utilizing the Sugar Shack while you're there?
I will be. Thank you for that question. So I actually am going to teach a food science unit that like leads us right into Maple Tasting Tour, which is one of their fundraisers that they have in the spring. So we will be using it to learn about maple production, and then we're going to do part of my unit assessment involves like them showing me how to use some of the equipment in there. Cool. Thanks for that question. Beth?
So you mentioned that you're super excited about professional development, which is a wonderful thing to have a good mindset. Do you have things identified in the near future that you would like to pursue?
Yeah, actually. So I'd love to get case certified within like my second or third year of teaching, probably in animal science, because I don't have that much content knowledge in animal science right now. And I feel like a lot of people would expect me to say that I want to get case certified in plant science, but I just feel like because of that, like what I mentioned in my presentation, stretching yourself and finding those opportunities to learn more about what you don't know is what makes you a master educator over time. So why would I get case certified in plant science? You know, like it's just, I need to just continue to grow as an educator and just reach out and find things that I need to get better at and then just pursue that. Liz.
So you talked about the forestry plot that your cooperating center has. Can you talk more about like whether or not you're going to incorporate that into any of your units, or like how you hope to see them continue to use it?
Right. So I will be using the forestry plot. I have a unit in my landscaping class on pruning, where we're going to learn about some tree identification and then the best methods to prune a tree and tree maintenance for like safety reasons and for aesthetic reasons. So I will be using it. And then I know they're going to continue to use it, not only for tree ID and forestry type concepts, but also for like the maple production aspect of that. Brandon.
For you. Yeah, great presentation. You talked about your own FFA experience, and you went to a tech school that was primarily focused in horticulture. So I'd be curious to know, as you're now going to student teach at a comprehensive high school, has there been challenges with that? But also, what have you learned in that process, and what are you most excited for?
Thank you for asking that question. I think that one of my something that I bring to the table as an educator is both those experiences. So my time at a CTC was really interesting because we had 2.5 hours a day dedicated solely to agriculture education. And now I'm seeing students in and out in 45 minutes. So at first I was thinking to myself, what am I going to get done? There's not a lot of time to set up labs and tear down labs, and things are going to have to be multiple days long. But I feel like I've just found joy in seeing both sides of that and just embracing it as it comes. I think that, like I mentioned, like seeing both sides of that is something that I bring to the table, and being able to diversify my instruction to fit either a comprehensive high school and a career tech center is just something that's going to make me a better educator in the long run. And something that I'm really excited for as I go into a comprehensive high school to teach there is just to see how that plays out, because I'm so used to just coming in and sitting down for like a long time, just to see what the dynamic is as students come in and out.
I don't guess I was as familiar with some of the specifics of some of your experiences, so I'm really excited that you have so much experience doing like diversity in the classroom. I'm curious, you said when you were in Tennessee that there are students that didn't speak English. When there's a language or communication barrier, what can you do in your classroom to help alleviate some of those issues?
That's a great question. When I was at Eagleton, I was with Ms. Robolino, another student teaching candidate, and she spoke a little bit of Spanish, so that language barrier wasn't as difficult. But my cooperating teacher at the time, her name is Maya Sullivan, she uses a lot of Google Translate to connect with those students. And there's also one student in her class that can speak English and Spanish very well. So the student was also translating. But I feel like just finding those people, those resources in the school to help you translate things, doing your own research, like how can I connect with these students? And there was a great presentation in AE 412 about culturally responsive teaching from Dr. Laura Rice. And that really opened my eyes to the different strategies there are to connect with diverse learners, and especially English language learners, as they're making that move to learn English, and how we can break down barriers in that space. So thank you for that question.
You have two questions for you.
Sure.
Question number one, what have you done as an individual to contribute to the community of practice or the community of learners that you guys refer to as PSU Admin 23? What is your contribution to the company?
Thank you for this question. So ever since I decided to pursue agricultural education, I heard about your teaching cohort, and it was this concept of a family, and you go through student teaching together, you go through student teaching prep together, and you just become this tight-knit group of people that just have gone through so much together, and you never lose that. And I was really, really interested going into this semester of how I can enforce that amongst my cohort, knowing that we all are so different. So one of the events that I held at my house was pizza and PowerPoints. So everyone came over for pizza, and we had PowerPoint night, which if you're unfamiliar, you just make a PowerPoint and like everyone in your cohort is like a slide. Like mine was ranking the cohort as getaway drivers. That was pretty fun. Morgan's was what character of the office would be. And that was just a fun way to de-stress. And then another thing that I've done for my cohort is I invited my cohort members over this past Sunday. And I said, if you just want to go through your final presentation, like you can come over on Sunday and we can take the whole 45 minutes and we can ask whatever questions that you think are going to be asked just to alleviate that stress. Because I want my cohort members to know that I'm in their corner and I really am looking out for them. And I would give them the shirt off my back. Like I just want us all to win.
And here's your second question. When all is said and done, if you mentioned to us this Northwest story, when everything's over, what do you want students, colleagues, administrators, parents, and community members to say about Ms. Cusate, about you as a student?
I think that the biggest thing I want people to say about me as a student teacher is that I tried everything. I feel like student teaching is a great opportunity for us to just go and see what works and what doesn't as an educator, and have that safety net of our cooperating teacher to help us guide us along the way. And I just want people to say, like, she wasn't so sure about this, but she rocked it. And or she wasn't so sure about this and it didn't work, and now she knows not to do that when she gets hired. So just someone that takes risks and does it all, because that's what student teaching is for, I believe. Carson.
We have time for one more question. So I think you've done a very good job over the last couple of years at really being very transparent about what you're thinking and feeling. I think I've seen you on the brink of tears. I've also seen you very happy and so sickly that I didn't know if you were going to come in the next day. And so I think you've done a very good job at talking about when you're stressed and talking about when you feel overwhelmed and the things that you are doing to work through all those processes. And I think that you're going to encounter that tenfold when you are dealing with students this spring and next year. And so I'm very curious about some of the things that were done, whether it be TJAG or outside of here, that served as a resource for you to go to feel less stressed, to feel less anxious, and some of those ways that you work with that, whether it was maybe something you did personally or maybe some of the faculty members around here that offered support. And if you're going to take that and apply it to being a teacher in a classroom and turn it around the other side of the desk.
Thank you for that question. I think that some of the ways that I've managed how I've been feeling is just to confide in my friends and have their support, and then the support of all of the faculty members and their years of experience combined, and some of the apprehensions I had about going into teaching, and then the support of my cohort members, because we're all going through this together. How I'm going to take all of that into my student teaching is a huge piece of what I mentioned in my presentation is that empathy piece. That everyone together and everyone showing me that they care about me has has instilled like a feeling inside me that I also care about others and I want to help people the way they've helped me and really pay it forward. I know that a big part of me developing empathy as an educator came from some of the great teachers I had in high school. And it just extends towards like the Penn State teacher family. It's just like, I want to be able to show empathy and not be afraid to show my emotions to my students and tell them that it's okay to feel whatever you're feeling and that there's people rallying behind you that support you and want you to win.
It was like that moment when you're about to get the little like button in the microwave, it's 1 second away, I was like a half a second. Any other questions for Nicolette? Otherwise, let's go ahead and,
Oh.
no, we have one more.
I do have
Go ahead,
one more,
please.
Yes.
if you'll allow it. So you mentioned the goals program,
Mhm.
and I'm just interested in how you will integrate what you learned in that program. Specifically, will you share global food security content with your learners, and how?
Yes, that's a great question. So I feel like one of the easiest ways and most impactful ways as well is to teach students about the sustainable development goals that I learned throughout that experience. And I actually already did this at my AmeriCorps experience. We made little posters about what the sustainable development goals were, and then one thing we can do to help contribute to solving that goal. As far as at my cooperating center, I won't be teaching a unit on global agriculture or the sustainable development goals, but it's there's countless opportunities to incorporate that into instruction, sprinkling it in and making that part of the curriculum. And then eventually when I do get hired one day, I'd love to teach a class on global agriculture and food security, just to spread awareness, because I feel like a lot of people don't know the facts about that. So thank you.
Congratulate her on that. Continue with the closed door portion, we would ask to retire at 2:14 for refreshments. We have a lunch break, and then we are back at 1 o'clock with Ms. Altry.